Hi, this is Jacob Simmons, and I'm doing my interview for Dr. Baller's management class. And the person I have with me today is Sean Gunter. He's a senior research manager for Baker Hughes. Hi, Sean.
Hello.
He is also my brother. I'm going to go ahead and start the interview. So, Sean, how would you describe your leadership style?
I would describe it as an empowerment type of leadership style. So I look to delegate responsibility and support where needed. So it's a combination of empowerment and service. So the next part of that is really helping to remove barriers and provide the team the tools they need to succeed.
Good. And what would you say a leader's best asset is?
A leader's best asset is listening. Really, your team knows what's going on a lot of times better than you in the details. And the other part is listening to those above you just to kind of get a situational awareness of what's going on in the company so that you can flow that back to the team. So I would say that's probably the most important asset.
Okay. And can you name a time when an employee disagreed with your directive and how you handled it?
Yeah, there's been plenty of times where that's happened. It depends case by case. I think the first thing I really encourage them to do is if they disagree, then to bring me data to convince me their position is valid. So if they think we should go another direction, then, I run an engineering group, so their job is to bring data. So it can't just be opinion based. And the same with me. So I'm happy to bring other information to support my position and even clarify maybe direction from above that they may not be aware of. So there may be some other influences that at their level they're just not aware of.
Okay. Kind of feel like it's data that kind of proves the point between you and your employees.
Yeah. Data driven, that takes bias out, that takes, feelings out, and you just really focus around what's right to do for the business and why. And my other favorite question around making decisions is, if this was your own money and your own company, would you take this direction and why? Because if you wouldn't do it with your own money, you shouldn't do it with the company's money.
Oh, that's very. I'm going to go ahead into the next question. Could you tell me how do you praise a team member under you?
Well, that depends on the person. Again, really, some people I've found on my team really don't like public praise. It kind of makes them uncomfortable in a meeting to call them out. So I may just go by their desk and say, hey, I appreciate it. You did a nice job. And they appreciate that more than being brought out in front of, the whole team, 18 people in a meeting. Other people, I mean, they do actually like to be acknowledged in the meeting and go that way. And for the most part, a lot of times, just a simple thank you goes a long way. And then, of course, you go up or down, go up from there depending on what they did. So there's various forms of praise and reward, if you will.
So it's different. It's different for each individual level, for each person, you'd say.
Yeah, I'd say it's different for each individual person, no matter what their level is.
Okay.
Right? I mean, I've even seen senior managers and stuff that they really don't want to be complimented in a meeting. I mean, they just prefer you walk by their office and say, hey, thanks for helping me with that. And that's more than enough.
Okay. Also, how do you encourage the development of your employees at work?
How do I encourage the development? Well, one of the things I always tell them is, they really own their own career. And so I really push them to take an active part in that. And one of the things, I don't assign training to my engineers. We kind of agree on their career path and the way they want to go. And I have them bring the training opportunities to me.
Oh,
That way they're out looking around, they're thinking about their career, and I think they get a little more out of that. The only time I would say is if I would assign a training would be if there's a specific developmental need that we've agreed on.
Mm-hmm.
Then the other part is give responsibility and measure outcome, and then talk about outcome. And really, there's no better development than, you know, I have people that manage the labs. If I give them the lab and they can manage that in a way that's professional and represents, you know, their values and values of the company, that shows me, you know, maybe they can be trusted with more responsibility. And that's basically the way I say, you know, I can't trust you with a lab. Why would I trust you to lead the research team?
Right. And how would you handle conflict among your employees?
Um, well, that's something I'm pretty familiar with too. It depends on the situation. If it's disagreements, a lot of times I try to encourage them to resolve it on their own, depending on what it is.
Mm-hmm.
And I kind of go back to, you know, first seek to understand and then seek to be understood. And so sometimes there's a lot of disagreement because people are so focused on convincing the other person, of making sure the other person understands them, and not seeking to understand the other person. I've actually had situations where people were disagreeing, but they were actually saying the same thing in a different way. Right. And then the other part is bring data. So I tell them, you know, hey, if somebody doesn't understand your point of view, write down a straw man, bring some data, give them an example instead of just verbally talking it out. So those are a couple examples.
Okay, that's good. How do you evaluate performance?
Output, and quality of work. So a good example is, you know, are you, as an engineer, I expect you to provide a professional report.
Mm-hmm.
I have templates and things that set the standard for what is a professional report. And then I would say the other part is say do ratio. So if you say you're going to do it, then you should deliver on that. On the other side of that, I don't often set their schedules. If we have a big project, they come up with the schedule, but then they're responsible for executing against that.
Mm-hmm. Is that yearly performance, or do you guys do a monthly?
We do quarterly performance
Or
is how we do it typically. And I mean, for me, no one should ever be surprised about their performance. So if there's an issue that's, you know, I would sit down and bring them up with them and just say, hey, coach them on this, that, or the other.
mm-hmm.
Not in terms of negative, but just in coaching, hey, we need to improve in this area, and this is why, and this is what I'm looking for.
Okay. Do you have anybody that you look to for mentorship as a leader?
Absolutely. I have other senior leaders in the business with, you know, 30, 40 years of experience. They've dealt with a broad range of issues. And I would say not just within my business, but across the corporation. So chief engineers, other people that have demonstrated good ethics, good character, those kind of things are people I may go to. Maybe if I'm having even an issue with an employee and I'm not sure how to sort it out, I may go talk to them about it.
Okay. Have they been like the same mentor the whole time, or have you changed mentors throughout your career?
I actually have never found a set mentor works very well.
Mm-hmm.
I would say it's situational. So there's some people I may go to with technical problems. There's some people I would go to for business advice. And there's other people I may go to for more interpersonal career, you know, career development, employee advice. So it depends.
Um, how do you delegate your time as a manager?
Um, I delegate my time as a manager, one, depending on the priorities that my manager sets for me. Um, so we typically interface and he'll have certain priorities. The other part is it's heavily delegated to servicing my team. So I'm one person, they're 18. So a lot of my time goes to making sure that their time is efficient and maximized. So if they're having a problem, then that's where my attention goes.
Okay. And can you tell me what the difference is between a lead?
I didn't hear the question.
Oh, can you tell me what the difference is between a leader and a manager?
The difference between a leader and a manager is, I would say, a manager is somebody who just follows a known process. They kind of repeat, maybe they're given a guideline and they say, hey, balance the checkbook, and they follow that. I would say the leader is someone who is actively out identifying problems
Mm-hmm.
and who is not afraid to challenge existing business policies, future business policies, or to raise up a problem. Um, to me, I think that's the difference, because a leader drives change and improvement.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, what I would classify as a manager is they sometimes become just a rule follower.
Yeah, understand that. And we'll go with one more question here. Uh, what is the most difficult part of being a leader?
The most difficult part of being a leader. Um, Boy, that's a tough question. I would say
If you
for
have
me,
multiple, okay.
for me personally, sometimes the most difficult part of being a leader is, you know, coming up as an engineer. It was very hard to transition because I'm used to individual accomplishments. I designed this, I created that, I did this. And then as a leader, I mean, you have to stop. You can't do the design work or you're taken away from your team.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really transitioning to empowering and enabling the team to achieve. So I think sometimes a lot of people, when they transition into leadership, it's not about them anymore.
Right.
It's about the team. And so, that is something you always have to keep in the front of your mind. When they succeed, it's what they did. You just help them along the way. Um, the other things, the big decisions, I mean, to me, have never been much of a challenge, because I always go back to, if this was my money,
Mm-hmm.
would I spend it in this way? Or if this is my company, would I make this decision? And that takes the politics, inner office politics, we all know we have those, kind of out of the picture. And it's just like, what's the best outcome for the business? If it was my business, what would I do?
Well, those are all great answers, and I want to say thank you very much for your time, and we'll go ahead and end the call. But I want to appreciate you for hopping on the interview with me.
You're welcome. Take care. Bye bye.